The first part of that is, huge discussion. I mean, Cecil B. DeMille back in the late 20s was asked why he never made a great movie about Washington. He made one about Lincoln, he made one about Moses. And he said that because most Americans have such an exalted image of Washington in their heads that nobody who portrays him will ever satisfy the audience, and they'll all leave disappointed. So Washington is this transcendent, iconic figure who's not really human. I mean, a fellow wrote a book called Washington, Imperfect God. It's about Washington's slavery. And if you think about the title, well, if you think he's a god, he's going to always be imperfect. And I think we're at a stage now where we're looking for flawed founders and for people who are not mythical. That's it. Specifically, Washington brought to the discussion of whether we should move to a nation the experience of leading the Continental Army. And that was a roller coaster ride in which the states simply provided only a portion of what they were supposed to provide. Washington said, if you give me what I'm asking for, which was about 100,000 troops and many of them for the duration, I can win the war in a year. The most he ever had was 15,000. And they run up what becomes a $40 million debt because the states aren't paying. So Washington is profoundly aware of the problems that are caused when you have something that calls itself a union that isn't really functioning as a union. Plus, Washington, more than any other of the founders, is aware of the American Revolution as a continuation of the French and Indian War. He grows up as a man and as a person in the transmontane West and as a soldier. The British and the Americans win the war against the French. He sees the American Revolution as a war in which we now take control of the eastern third of the North American continent. He's got 37,000 acres out there as well that make this more than a purely altruistic thing. And that becomes the basis of his fortune when he dies, worth over $500,000. But he is thoughtful about the issue of whether we should go in this direction towards nationhood. He is extremely reluctant to come out of retirement. I spent a lot of time on this. Part of it because he's taken the vow of Cincinnatus, and Cincinnatus can't come back. Swords into plowshares. There are letters to, especially Lafayette, of all the Washington's letters, you got to believe the ones he burned to Martha had all kinds of stuff in them. That's the reason he had them burned. But the ones to Lafayette are the most palpable and human. And the phrase that keeps reappearing is gliding down the stream of life. I am gliding down the stream of life. No male in the Washington line for 4 generations had lived past their 50s. He's in his middle 50s. He thinks he's going to die. And he wants to die here, beneath his vine and fig tree. And it's going to take heaven and earth to move him out of there. And eventually he's persuaded. Jay's got there working on him. Madison's working on him. Hamilton's working on him. And Henry Knox.
How do they convince him?
Eventually, what they say is, we can't do it without you. You are indispensable. And if you mean what you say, that your legacy is bound up with whether or not this revolution produces something that's lasting. And therefore, you got a lot at stake here. To which other people are saying, yeah, but if you go there and it fails, and it's probably going to fail, it undermines that legacy. And he exacts a promise from Madison, which is interesting. He said, I will only do it if we go for broke. We're not here to reform the Articles, make a few tweakings. We're here to replace them, which is illegal, unconstitutional. And that's one of the reasons Madison says, okay, but because that's the only way I can get Washington. He doesn't have anything to say during the convention. It's automatic that he's going to be named president. The only thing said at the convention is Robert Morris recommends him, and that's it. And Morris sits down. He stays with Robert Morris in his house in Philadelphia during this time. The last day of the convention, he gets up, Washington does, and makes one recommendation. The size of a congressional district should be 30,000, not 40,000, he says. It's almost like he wants to say, okay, I want to get on the record in supporting this thing. And but then he says, I'm not going to do anything to support the ratification process. And he keeps the promise publicly, but privately, behind the scenes, he's talking to Madison about the delegation in Virginia and how to pressure people in what's going to be Kentucky. He's talking to Maryland because Maryland wants to delay until after Virginia, and if they do that, the whole momentum can change. And then Maryland, if Washington says, you got to do it, and they do it. So he's very active in all this. And he also knows that he's going to be named the first president. No president in American history did not want to be president more than George Washington. He really didn't want to do it. Martha didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it. He said when he left, I feel like a criminal going to his own execution. And one of the interesting things when you try to read the Washington papers during the presidential years, and they're not complete on that yet, half the correspondence is about Mount Vernon. It's interesting. That's what he's thinking about all the time. That's where he wants to really be. And he gets here, but he doesn't live very long. But it's a long-winded answer to your question, but that he, of the Federalists, anti-Federalist, pro-Constitution, he is the ultra-Federalist. He wants this more than anybody, and he wants this clear statement of sovereignty, federal sovereignty over the states. That's, which they don't get in the Constitution, but that's his position. So if you say, well, you put all these people, Jefferson, Madison, Washington, what would they have said in 1861? Jefferson would have gone with the Confederacy. Madison, God knows where he would have gone. He could go either way. Washington, he's with the Union. In that sense, Lincoln was right.